So some of the things that I told myself as I move forward, why do I want to do this and why am I doing it? I think at the end of the day, it kept going back to the gap, the gap that exists, the disparities, and specifically with, like I said, minority-owned businesses, because I knew that there was a huge gap.
I'm Amanda Leitner, and welcome to Rochester Rising, where we amplify the stories of Rochester entrepreneurs. Welcome to episode 202 of the podcast. So today on the show, I got the opportunity to chat over Zoom with serial entrepreneur Tawonda Burks. Tawonda is a Chicago native. She first came to Rochester about 23 years ago as a newlywed. She's a full-time employee at Mayo Clinic, is going to school to get her doctorate, and also owns and operates a consulting firm called Elocina. Elocina is a local Rochester-based consulting firm that can serve clients across the U.S. and specializes in startup business. Elocina grew from Tawonda's desire to help others succeed, especially minority-owned businesses. So you're in for a great conversation with Tawonda today to learn more about Elocina, how she grew the business in Rochester, and specifically how she created this business to fill gaps she saw in the startup ecosystem. So a reminder that you can catch new Rochester Rising podcasts every Wednesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on our website at rochesterrising.org or on our YouTube channel to learn more stories about Rochester-based entrepreneurs. So check it out. And we have a lot of other stories, articles, podcasts, and videos on our website as well. Rochester Rising is a storytelling arm of Collider, which is a Rochester-based nonprofit that supports early-stage entrepreneurs. To learn more about Collider, you can visit our website at collider.mn. All right, so now on to the podcast today with Tawonda Burks and Elocina. I really appreciate your time this morning on a Monday morning before Thanksgiving. I know it's a busy time, but yeah, thanks for being here, Tawonda.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Well, so yeah, I think just to start off, it would be interesting to learn a little bit more about you. So, where are you from? How did you get here?
Sure. Tawonda Burks. I have been in Rochester. Let's see, my oldest child will be 23, so almost 23 years. I came to Rochester, actually. My mom moved here many years ago. I came here as a newly married individual, no kids at the time, just my husband and I moved here with my mom and quickly realized Rochester is not the place to be at that age. So we actually left. Went to Orlando, Florida for a couple years, got pregnant and decided, want to go back Midwest. Party's over. So we came back to Rochester and we have been here ever since, 4 additional kids later and still hanging on to Rochester. Let's see. What else about me? I am a consultant. I have my own company called Elocina. Also, I do work at Mayo Clinic full-time as a project manager as well. That's pretty much me in a nutshell, I guess, unless you want to get specific. But, the introductions are always kind of challenging. It's like, what do you want to know? What do you need to know?
Yeah, no, they definitely are. It's always a little odd to kind of talk about yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk more about, now I wrote down how you said it, Elocina. Elocina.
Very unique name.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll tell you a little bit about the name of that. It's actually my last daughter, who's 2, her name spelled backwards. Just the first initial, which is Alana, and then middle name Nicole. So it's just a Nicole backwards.
That's so nice that you get to have this piece of her,
Exactly. And it's interesting just because we just trademarked the name, got finalized, just a few days ago, actually. So I got the trademark certificate in the mail and I gave her a tour just because the business is for her. And she's all happy with it and everything. And next thing I know, she's trying to crumble it up. And I'm like, yeah, we don't want to do that just yet. So yeah,
No.
yeah. But
Get
yeah.
a copy. Yeah. So yeah, can you tell me a little bit more about the business and then what services you provide to clients through it?
Sure. So we are a consultant firm, mainly specializing in startup businesses. And I've been at this for many years. I want to say since 2012. And even before, but the organization started in 2012 under a different name, which was called Luxury Concierge, where we added additional services. So when I first started this company, it actually came from a lot of requests from individuals that I knew within my circle, which was a lot of, Tawonda, can you help me with this? How do I do this? Where can I go for this? Just a lot of resources. And then I figured, this sounds like a business, right? A lot of people are coming to me or calling me for my expertise. What can I do to help and how can I help? In addition to my passion with helping individuals in this capacity, I've always had a sense of wanting to help others and especially succeed. And early on, during my undergrad years, I realized that business is what I want to do. So I started several of my own companies. And then along the way, I would help other individuals start their companies as well. I started to naturally gravitate towards minority-owned businesses because I saw that's where mostly the struggles were. So how do I help minority-owned businesses succeed? What resources do they need? How can I make those connections for them? What can I do to assist? What can I do to help? And it just kind of started like that. And over the years, I never done any advertising, any marketing, maybe a few ads here and there on social media, but otherwise everything is really done by word of mouth or referrals. And I'm still here today. I'm still taking on clients every once in a while and helping them through their strategic plans, writing business plans, helping them seek funding, trying to find contracts, and things like that.
So I know there's client confidentiality, but can you talk in kind of general terms what it would look like from someone? How do they find you, start working with you, and what would that interaction look like?
Yeah. So like I said, most of my clients are referrals, and I don't actually just help individuals here in Rochester, in the Rochester community. Actually, my clients are all over. Even going back to where I grew up from, Chicago. So I have a lot of clients in Chicago, Wisconsin, a lot in the Midwest, really. It seems like that's where majority of my market is, the Midwest. And it really is just referrals. A lot of people that I associate with that refer individuals back to me. And it's a typical phone call. Hey, I was told to give you a call that you can help me start my business, or I was told, give you a call, you do business plans, things like that. Or I'm looking for a place to open up my donut shop or whatever it may be. So that's how the initial phone call goes. And then I schedule a meeting with them, and then we kind of talk things through, see exactly what they need from me and if I'm able to help. And a lot of times there are some cases where I'm not able to help for several reasons. And if that's the case, if I'm able to refer, I do that. Or if I'm not able to help, I give them specific reasons why and how to sway them on the right track so that I could help them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's always so important to understand who we can't help and to, get them to somebody who can and not try and help people that we're not, Yeah,
it's very few people that I turn down. It's just like any engagement, you want to make sure that it's a right fit, right? Just like as a consumer, you want to make sure that you're buying from the right company and that it's something that you want to move forward with. And the same for me. I want to be very selective in those that I allow to retain my services for several reasons. Like I said, it's very few individuals that I do decline. But if I do, it's for grounds of it's unethical. It's not within my practice, things like that. So, yeah.
Do you have any type of industry that comes a lot to you, or is it just kind of temporal, like very early stage?
Yeah. Majority of the industry that comes to me is retail or service-based. Yeah, service-based clients.
I think you talked about this a little bit, but, what need did you see in Rochester for the business that you wanted to fill?
Yeah, I think for me, early on, the biggest need for me in the Rochester community, and I'll say other communities as well, but specifically the Rochester community, working with minority-owned business owners or, wannabe startups, is the lack of education, which for me was the biggest gap that I noticed. So what did I do for that? I started to teach courses once a quarter, with selective individuals or those that signed up for the course, basic business classes, marketing, what is entrepreneurship? Is it right for me? So I would teach a course once a quarter, and that was the biggest gap. And I do believe it still remains the biggest gap in the lack of resources. So with that being said, I started to teach the courses once a quarter. And since the pandemic hit, and there's still a need for this. So what can I do? So I started to work and currently still developing my online courses for individuals that still has that need, just because I still get the phone calls. People want to meet late at night, 1,000,001 questions. So I see that there's still a need for education. So that's the biggest gap that I would say is the education.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And the same thing, entrepreneurs have limited time. So you kind of have to meet them where they're at and, make it accessible, when they're available, which is usually late at night.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like late at night. Yeah. With this. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So you talked about, the business launched in 2012. Can't read my own handwriting here. And I think, this is such a great story because you're building this while you're maintaining your other job, which is a tremendous amount of work, moving everything forward. When you were thinking seriously about starting this, what were some of the processes and discussions you had with yourself and perhaps resources in the community that were useful to you in starting your business?
So it is a lot on top of me working full time. Not only that, I'm a full-time student as well. I'm at St. Mary's University seeking my doctoral degree in education leadership and running my own practice. So some of the things that I told myself as I move forward, why do I want to do this and why am I doing it? I think at the end of the day, it kept going back to the gap. The gap that exists, the disparities, and specifically with, like I said, minority-owned businesses, because I knew that there was a huge gap. So one of the things that I wanted to do, because I received my master's degree years ago, and I was able to utilize those skills and apply it back to those that hire me or those that I come across or those that I help, I was able to, pass on some of those skills or those traits and help other individuals start their companies. But because I noticed there was a huge gap, how can I dig deeper, right? So that's why I decided to go back to school. And especially with me doing the teaching once a quarter, I needed to find out more. I needed to know more. How can I help more? And especially since I'm educating the adults, right? So it's different from educating children, but adults is a whole different ballgame. So I had to dig deeper, went back to school to get that basic foundation of research and how can I apply some of this methodology that I'm learning over time. And thus far, it's been working wonderful. Some of the things that I'm finding and uncovering and being able to pilot several different things. Yeah. So but I think the biggest question that I ask myself is why? And when I answer that why, and the answer is because of the disparities and the gaps, that's what pushes me and keeps me going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, doing what you're doing, running anybody running a business, it's so challenging. There are so many times when you're like, yeah, this is enough. Like I've had enough. I'm just going to go back to something else. So it's so important to have that why and something that really kind of drives you. Otherwise it's, a really up and down bumpy road that can get very discouraging.
That is true. But at the same time, for me, because I have the flexibility, I only retain so many clients at a time. So like I said, I do have to turn some people down or refer them to other individuals or other companies that I know within my network. So I do have to be strategic about what I do just because of my other responsibilities and other hats that I wear.
Yeah. So it's kind of the best of all worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Can just find the balance.
Exactly. Yes.
So I think one thing, one question we get asked a lot, especially from people not from Rochester, is how do you connect in? So is there any kind of advice you'd give to people listening about how to kind of grow their professional network within the community? What was kind of successful to you to get to meet people?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that saying that closed mouths don't get fed, right? You ever heard that?
Yes.
You have to talk. Just talk to people. You never know who is who. There's several networks within a community, and I just say reach out. Hey, what do you guys do? Well, we're in a pandemic right now, so search around the internet and see what virtual events are taking place. But I think for the most part, if you have a goal, I would say don't be afraid to talk about that to other individuals, because you never know who knows who and what they know, actually. So I feel like the more you talk about it and socialize with even strangers in certain capacities, you never know how far your network can go. I've had conversations with complete strangers before, and before I knew it, they were able to refer me to someone or gave me a referral to reach out to other individuals. So I think for the most part, if you're new to the community, don't be afraid to reach out to the resources that are there. We have a lot of organizations in town from, Collider, Better Business Bureau, the Chambers, so many other organizations to reach out to. And look for different groups and networks to join on social media sites.
Yeah. No, that's so true. I feel like a lot of times we're so afraid to talk about something and put ourselves out there. Like we're afraid to whatever perceived failures are that people are going to judge us, but it's just just go for it. Yeah. And like you said, there's so much out there. I just was reading an email before I jumped on here about a food ideas week that's going on in Minneapolis. And the nice part about everything being virtual now is I don't have to go to take half a day to go to Minneapolis, or a day pretty much.
Exactly.
You can just jump on.
Exactly. Like I said, I'm a firm believer in closed mouths don't get fed, right? So if you never talk about it or speak to have those conversations, you won't get that far.
Yeah.
Or even if you join that network and just be all ears, the fact that you've taken the next step to see what's out there.
You've really kind of got your finger on the pulse of the small business and startup community here in Rochester. So what are you kind of seeing as far as trends going on in the community right now, in the business community here in Rochester?
Yeah, so post-pandemic, right? I feel like there's a huge trend taking place. I think with more people being at home, having time on their hands to think about their next move, what's going to happen, their future, financial stability, I think people are resurfacing a lot of those ideas that they had in the back of their heads that they couldn't implement because for whatever reason, they're 9-to-5s or, engaged in other activities at the time. But there's been a ton of individuals that's been laid off work because my phone has been ringing nonstop with referrals with, hey, 10 years ago, I thought about this and I still have this idea. I'm wondering if you can help me with this. So I feel like since the pandemic happened, a lot of people are resurfacing those ideas and thoughts about starting a business. So I feel like the biggest trend right now in Rochester and surrounding areas is people wanting or having the motivation to move forward with those ideas that they had in the past.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think this has really woken up in us a sense of not putting all your eggs in one basket. Mm-hmm. Even though we think we're in kind of the sheltered economy here in Rochester, we saw that we're not.
Right. And if I'm not mistaken, I haven't read any current stats, but I feel like there's been a rise in small businesses, within the United States after the pandemic hit, which says a lot. That says a lot. I would think, why besides, a lot of these individuals probably was laid off work. but it also shows, what that was a contributing factor of why individuals didn't move forward with their business ideas as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting now, even, talking to some businesses that started in 2007, 2008 during that recession, obviously nothing like we're experiencing now, but,
Mm-hmm.
downturns do spur opportunity for people who kind of have the resources to do it, which is another issue altogether. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see in another 6 months what kind of comes out of this.
Yeah, I know. We'll see.
Yeah. And I think in the community too, obviously there are gaps and areas for improvement. So what do you see in that realm in the community as far as things that are areas that could be improved?
Yeah, so one of the biggest gaps that I've noticed within a community with a lot of small business owners, and I've had several conversations with individuals that are looking for opportunities, is the lack of opportunities that a lot of them feel with having like government contracts or contracts with other large organizations. It's a lot of, in short, paperwork for them to do, a lot of hurdles for them to get over to be able to have these contracts or win these bids with these large organizations or the governments. And a lot of times, a lot of these small companies don't know how to go about it. So I've walked through bids with certain individuals that didn't understand the language. So I feel like for a lot of small companies, I think a lot of the language needs to be simplified. I think that's been the case even with those businesses that were impacted by the pandemic when it came to applying for grants and other loans and things like that. A lot of them did not apply because of the amount of paperwork involved or the language used on the applications that discouraged them from applying. So again, it comes back to, like I said, the need for the education. I walk through a lot of things with individuals to explain to them what this means and how to get those bids or how to walk through a contract or what organizations to look at. So I feel like when it comes to small businesses, I feel like that's the biggest need in the community is for large organizations to simplify things for small business if you want them to be able to compete against these bids that are out there and available.
Yeah. And the women and minority certified business path could be so beneficial for people. And if they, if the paperwork is so daunting, which I've heard the same thing, yeah.
And it discourages them. They see that and they figure, it's too much. I don't understand it. And because they don't have that label, right, as a small business or minority owned, women owned, they can't apply for other grants or opportunities because they don't have that certification, which is a reoccurring cycle with the small business owners. So I feel like that's the biggest gap, really. So I feel like the large organizations within a community should think about those applications and what that looks like to the small business owners.
Again, I think you talked about this too, but I always like to understand, what inspires you to get up and do this every day on top of everything else that you're doing? What motivates you to play this role?
Right. I think at the end of the day, what motivates me each day is that I have the ability to help someone else achieve their dreams or their goals. The fact that they come to me for assistance, I get excited, right? So that keeps my heart full. The fact that they came to me and entrusted me to help them fulfill their goals or their dreams. So I think at the end of, even if it's something simple, for an individual that comes to me with no knowledge and wants to, license their corporation or whatever, just to simple help them walk through the step with registering their company. The excitement that they have, is what fills me. And that's what motivates me each day to help, knowing that I help someone get a little bit closer to their goals and dreams.
Yeah. I think that's such a beautiful thing because small business ownership, entrepreneurship can be so powerful to move people out of a situation into a better one,
Yes.
For generations.
Right. right?
So,
Or helping them, like I said, I write financial plans and business plans and things like that. And when I get that phone call, I was approved for my loan. Thank you so much. Things like that really hits my heart, so I get excited for them that they have the opportunity that they didn't think they had at first. And knowing that they couldn't create this document that banks were requiring or whoever it may be, to get that opportunity, the fact that I was able to help them, it just keeps me going forward every day.
So then my last kind of question for you, we talked a little bit about the rewarding, motivating part. What are some of the challenging parts of your day?
Challenging part of the day is when I do have the opportunity to say, no, I'm sorry, I can't help you. That's always hard. And I'll give you an example of a no for me. I've had several individuals that would say, I want to open up a small boutique. I want to sell XYZ products. And I would tell them, well, XYZ products are only sold by XYZ, right? Or, certain merchants that carry that brand. And then they'll tell me where they get their inventory from. And then I have to explain to them, well, that's illegal, or it's a knockoff or things like that. So we can't do that. But then they go down the line of, well, there's other stores that do this. And I always tell them that goes back to, if you want to own and operate a business, what makes your business different and unique, right? So let's start there. We don't want to do exactly what the other stores are doing. You want to be different and unique. So if you want to sell XYZ product, we'll have to figure out how can you contract with them to sell their products. But I can't help you sell like knockoff brands, so to speak. And I can't help you set that establishment up because, as like I said, for me and my company, we have standards. And for me, that's unethical. So that's one of my no's, right? So, and then at the end of the day, this individual felt very passionate about what they wanted to do, and they have done it for years out of their home or whatever it may be. But I can see the passion in their eyes that, this is what they want to do. But again, it's having that conversation of the rights and the wrongs, and then just leading them on the path of what's the right thing to do. And then having that conversation where when you change your mind or you have other goals or objectives that you want to reach, feel free to reach back out to me, But I think just seeing the fire in their eyes and then having to say no is one of a challenge for me. But again, I have to stand firm with my beliefs and move forward.
Saying no is one of the hardest things you ever have to do, I think, especially when, I could see how that would be very, very challenging. I have a hard time saying no to things too. And just have to have your path and that's what you're going down. And right. Absolutely. Well, I have some kind of final fun questions that I've been asking everybody this year. So I'll ask them to you too.
Okay.
So kind of to start off, what are you reading or listening to right now?
Oh gosh. So I am currently reading a quantitative research book right now. As you know, I told you I'm a full-time student as well for seeking my doctorate degree. So I don't have any time to pleasure read, unfortunately. So it's strictly reading for school when I have that downtime. Yeah.
Yep, completely understandable.
I think I have a list somewhere of 2 read books, but I don't know where it is right now.
Yeah, so I think, like we talked about, it's been so isolating since March. What are some strategies you've created that help with your kind of mental wellness during this time or overall wellness?
Sure. I wake up half hour earlier than everyone else in the house. And then I stay up half hour later than everyone else in the house. That way I have my mental me time. And that helps a lot just because throughout the day, there's so much going on when we're all cooped up in the house all day long, from work to school, business, just everything going on. But I think allowing myself that extra half hour and, beginning and end of my day helps a lot.
Yes. Gives you a little bit of breather time. I could see where that would be critical.
Yes, and I can enjoy my coffee in peace, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of my last question for you, everyone's always interested in kind of resources in the community. What's one resource that was valuable for your business? And is there anything you were kind of looking for in terms of support that you couldn't find?
You know, I'm so old fashioned. So the biggest resource for me within the community was the library. I'm so old fashioned. And I still tell people that when they're looking for some resources, I say, try the library. And they have this look on their face like, the library? I'm like, yeah, try the library. So for me early on, the library was the biggest resource for me. Of course, there's other organization within the community, but I always started at the library first. As far as some of I'm sorry, what was the second question?
If there's anything you were looking for, it would have been helpful that you couldn't find.
I think the second, anything that I couldn't find. I think having more mentors that look like me would have been beneficial. Lots of mentors within the community, but I had a very hard time navigating the business world from a minority perspective. You know, so there was a lot of networking outside of the community for advice and resources when it came to some of the challenges that we face. So I think that was the biggest downfall, was not having any mentors that has experienced some of the things that I have experienced as a startup. And as I move forward throughout my journey.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Just representation in Rochester is kind of one-sided. You can't argue your way out of that. This community can't. But no, I love your point about the library. I was at this really great side conference during a conference about resources at the library. And libraries have historically been a huge pillar of equity because they're free, they have so much access to resources, and they have access to resources that only people at universities have in terms of databases and stuff.
Exactly. And that's exactly why that was my number one resource. You know, even if the library gave me resources back within the community to other organizations, it was a great place to start versus me trying to, tear down Google, which can be overwhelming to a lot of people. But like I said, just going into the library, having those conversations with some of the librarians and pulling out some of those books, I still love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they're wonderful here in Rochester. We used to have, I don't know if you ever went to the James J. Hill in St. Paul. Did you ever?
I have not, no.
Okay, so it actually might have shut down. I think I'll have to look after we're done, but I think it actually got unfunded, which was awful because it was a huge business library. I'll have to look. I feel like it's closed at this point, and someone will probably correct me when they hear this.
Okay, was it city funded or was it a private library?
I feel it was private.
Okay.
Privately funded. But yeah, it was beautiful. And yeah, it was specifically a business, or they had a huge business reference section.
Oh, wow.
So I'll look into it when we're done here. But yeah, so that was my last question for you. I'll wrap up by asking you for any final thoughts and where can people find more about you and your business online and in person?
Sure. Well, you can find me online. You can reach out to elocina.com, which is elocina.com. Feel free to call 507-990-7223. And I think my final thoughts are, if you're thinking about starting a business, looking for resources, give me a call or reach out to the resources within the community. Just like I mentioned before, closed mouths don't get fed. So if you're looking for resources, wanting to talk to someone, have an idea, need to bounce it off them, just, talk to someone about it. If you need help with strategic planning, business plans, anything, I'm here to assist, and other organizations as well throughout the community. And like I mentioned before, if I'm not able to help, I'm able to recommend as well.
Well, thanks so much for this wonderful conversation today, Tawonda. I appreciate your time right before the holidays.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much to Tawonda for joining us on the podcast today and sharing her story and more about her business. You can find more information about Elocina through the links in our show notes. So we're always looking for great sponsors for this podcast. So if amplifying stories of Rochester entrepreneurs aligns with the mission of your business, let us know. Send us an inquiry email at hello@collider.mn. All right, that's a wrap for us at the podcast today. Thanks so much for tuning in, and please remember to subscribe wherever you listen into your podcast content so that you never miss a story of innovation and entrepreneurship coming out of Rochester, Minnesota. We'll see you here next Wednesday with a brand new episode.